I'm aware of what actual death is. So when someone was murdered, it wasn't that deep.
What inspired you to sign up for the Traitors?
It's a really difficult one because I genuinely, I'm a full-time doctor, and I saw this as an adventure to kind of see. Do you know what? When I heard the premise of the show, I thought there is no way that the only way that you can win this is if you're a traitor, and I didn't want to be a traitor, so I was just going to go and have a bit of a jolly in Scotland and do some tasks and then just enjoy myself. So it was really kind of the experience, and I'd never been on TV before, and I thought, you know what, let's see if I can get on this.
And so did you apply? Did someone contact you? How did you find out about the show?
So I applied, but I had a strong indication that I'd probably get through. I think they were looking. I think the Dutch version has people from different roles, and I knew they were probably looking for a lawyer. They're probably looking for a doctor. They were probably looking for I knew that they had demographics in terms of like job roles they were looking for, and I thought, you know what, let's apply and see what this is going to be like.
And where did you kind of see it advertised? Were you actively looking for TV shows?
No, I wasn't. I got contacted, and I thought, do you know what? Let's apply. That was basically how I saw it. It was really, it was off my back, but it was kind of like I have friends that work in TV and they knew about it, so I was just like, okay, let's see what this is about, kind of thing.
Oh, great. And so before that, had you ever really considered reality TV or anything like that?
No, absolutely not. It's one of those things where I just thought to myself, the thing about this show that I really loved, and I really think really jumps home, is that none of us were really fame hungry. So it's kind of just like, it felt like a bit of a family Cluedo episode. Like it felt like everyone was there to enjoy the experience. No one was there looking for their one-liners. Everyone was just kind of playing the game, and people's personalities kind of shone through, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I felt watching it as well. Like it just felt like a really lovely bunch of genuine people.
Yeah.
So when you found out, I know it was like a very extensive process from like applying to filming to all of that. So when you found out you were going to be on the show, did you think it was going to change your life at all?
No. It definitely has changed my life. There's a lot of things in the works now, but I thought this was an experience. Do you know what it is? I think I was frontline during the pandemic. I'm a GP now, but I was training during the pandemic, and I kind of just realized that life is really short. It has changed my life, and it has become a huge show. And I didn't realize that at the time. I generally thought I was going to be on something called like the Weakest Link. It would be like a day worth of shooting, and I'd be out. And then when we got to the castle and I saw the crew, I was like, this might not be Weakest Link. This might be actually huge. And they did a really good job of hiding how big it was from us. They kept saying, oh, it's going to be a huge show. But you know, like when producers are talking to you, like, yeah, of course it's going to be a huge show, blah, blah, blah. And then when we got there and we looked at each other, I was like, this might actually be a huge show. Like, let's just wow. So yeah, that was great. For me, obviously, as a doctor, I was worried about having to lie. And I knew that the game was immersive. Once I knew the game was immersive, you kind of have to rely on who you. It's a really weird thing, and people don't get this because they only get an hour episode, is that essentially who you actually are comes through when you're on camera 24/7. And so it's basically trusting yourself. Like when you're doing medicine your whole life, you kind of forget that you were a good person before you did medicine. Like when you're a doctor, people just assume you're a good person, and you don't know what comes first. Are you a good person, or did medicine make you a good person? And you kind of regress back to being a child. And so I was really worried because I decided to want to be a doctor when I was 12. So for the last 18, 19 years, I'd never been tested without being given, I've never just been Amos in a castle. Like I've always been Amos the doctor, as far as my adult life, and so it was really. I was worried that like I'd go feral and stuff, and actually, I didn't, and I was like, oh,
you know, you didn't really think it was going to change your life because you didn't think it was going to be a massive show, but
yeah, I did. And I was, but
sorry,
then
I was going to say, like, once it sunk in that it was going to be a massive show, did you this is really going to change my life?
Yes and no. I mean, I love being a doctor, so that will never change. I think the opportunities that have come from it are things that revolve around public health and doing actual good. I'm never gonna like, it's not my personality to sell products or like get endorsements, or like it just isn't. So like the things I care about, like two massive charities that I really care about, like Anthony Nolan's, have contacted me and been like, oh, do you want to be an ambassador? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. That's amazing. And it was really weird. I was on call to the rep, the social media team at Anthony Nolan. They were like, yeah, they're trying to explain the charity to me, which I've been part of since I was like 19. I was like, I'm on the register, right? I was like, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. She spent like 20 minutes trying to convince me. And I was like, did you check the register before you called me? I'm on there. So yeah, that was good. And that's the kind of stuff I want to do. So yeah, it's changed my life, but also means that I get to actually do crap I care about, which is kind of talk about things I care about and actually provide an authentic voice. So like, people care about what I talk about. People now care about what I say about health, which is really strange.
So when you found out that you were going to go on it, did you have to lie to your bosses or like your colleagues or your friends?
No. I didn't. So I was lucky enough to have I was a salary GP, so I was qualified already. So I didn't have to do any more exams. I was qualified. So now I was in the year when I decided where I worked. It was perfect timing. So I actually, now I'm in a position where if I don't want to, I never have to sit another exam in my life. I'm fully qualified. So I could take time away and just be like, I'm going to leave this job now. And then came back and found another job, which was good. So it didn't disturb. It was only, there was not that long filming. So it was like an extended holiday.
Oh, brilliant. And what did your day job involve before the show?
Just being a GP. Not just being a GP. Being a GP is a fucking huge role, and I really loved it. And I still love it. I still work as a GP and I still see patients. It was just that, so I was studying at the same time. So basically, the reason why I could do it is because I've got lovely employers and lovely team colleagues, not employers, colleagues, because I work with them in partnership. But I was studying, so they were very used to me having to take weeks off for study leave or days off during the week to study. And I was just like, can I use my holiday to do this? And they were like, yeah.
You talk about how it was a nice break, but like speaking to Kieran, he was like, this was the most emotionally intense thing I've ever done in my life. Did you think the Traitors was emotionally intense?
Yeah, like I have a thing whereby you can tell it in the show as well. Okay, and I can always say this: the people that got to the people that were most deeply affected by the show were people who are like actors or people who did acting before, because they immersed in it. But like it's very difficult to like, it's very strange. I'm aware of what actual death is. So when someone was murdered, it wasn't that deep. I was like, I'm like, it was really strange because when I got murdered, to watch their reaction, I was like, I'm just like, it was amazing to see how they that was one of the nicest moments ever, really, genuinely, because I think with my mental health in the past, sometimes when you're really low and you think that you wouldn't care if you woke up the next day, to see that people do care, like genuinely care that you didn't. And like, it was like Andrea carrying my picture around and Kieran bawling his eyes out. That for me was a really nice moment, because there's been moments in my life where I thought, hey, like no one gives a crap if I wake up tomorrow. Like, and that was a really nice moment. Even if people cared that I fake died. I was just like, it was a really horrible moment for them to watch, but for me, it was like, I actually teared up a little bit. I was like, oh, that's really nice. I was like, oh, maybe people do like me, and that was a nice moment.
Yeah, especially if you go into the show a bit worried about how you come across and what you're like as a person, to actually see that so many people.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I think it's just the internal self-criticism I always have, which is, yeah, and it's always an internal one. It's always battling against that, and it was nice to see that people. Yeah, I think Kieran said that I was a genuine lad and a nice guy and a good man. I was like, that's really nice. I really loved that.
Yeah, a lot of people, I remember when the show first aired, there were a lot of people online saying, how can all these like British people, because they're comparing it to the Traitors, a US where everyone's like, I hate this person. How can British people on the show love each other within a matter of what we know as days, but obviously generally like.
Okay, right. This is another thing as well, is I used to be those people. So I used to be the people that used to watch reality TV shows and be like, those people are mental. How can they love each other so much? But the love I have for Andrea is so it's so pure that it's like genuinely. I used to be that guy with like these idiots. They've known each other for X amount of days. How can they be like know each other? But I genuinely would walk like I'll do anything for that woman. So I get it now. I get it. It's such an intense experience. It's almost like there's only 21 other human beings on the planet right now that understand what that experience is like, and so we're intrinsically bonded, and we'll always be bonded. And there's that nice like. It's almost like when I went to see Andrea, because I visited her like a few times, and there's almost a calmness that you're with someone that understands. It's a weird thing. It's like when I'm in a room with Kieran, they're just like friends, family don't really get it, but when you're with them, you're like, yeah, that thing, I get that. It's nice.
Oh, that's lovely. And to go back as well, so before you went on the show, did you tell friends and family what you were going to do?
Yeah, 100%. My sisters were little sisters are always honest. They were
What
like,
did she say?
don't be an idiot on TV. Oh, my mom told me to keep my shirt on. Did not do that.
Yeah, obviously. I have so many questions about those scenes, but I'm probably not allowed to ask them.
Well, sister was like, keep your shirt on. And I was like, okay. I will. Fingers crossed. No, yeah, that was great.
And when you started filming, obviously it was a bit of a whirlwind. You saw all the other people, all the cameras, and then you got sent home immediately. What was that like?
Awful. I haven't. I watched it the first time I saw it, and I can literally see myself storing memory to tell my therapist in the future. Like the amount I'm blinking is just genuinely. It was a horrible moment. I don't regret it because I do think that I would do it again. I think that I was really annoyed with Andrea trying to put herself at the bottom of the line, so I moved her to the top of the line. And then I was just like, I don't want to be an arsehole. I don't actually think I'm going to win. This game is so random. It's 22 people here. If I think I'm going to win, like the odds are not in my favor.
Wow. And then yeah, you're booted off. Found out half an hour later that you're coming back.
Yeah.
And what was that feeling like?
Shock. I think it took me a few days to realize that I was going back in the game, but I do think the time in exile was probably the best part of that experience.
Really?
It is for me the bits where like, I mean, I can't really say much about it, but like it was that for me genuinely was the bit that being in the show was great, but when I think about my time there, I think about that period.
Okay. Interesting. Mysterious, but no, I know the protocol. And so sorry, I'm just gonna so that's obviously one of your favorite memories. Do you mind sharing some of your other favorite memories of the show? Obviously we talked about you and Andrea, like your relationship, but do you have any other like memories that your favorite?
Me and Kieran just being close, that was nice. I really had a good relationship with Aaron and Maddie. Like really genuine. I think Maddie especially, because we just like joke around. She's actually hilarious. She is that person. That's another thing as well, is that none of these people are acting. Like Maddie is 100% like that. Maddie once told me she thought rainbows only come out during the afternoon. And I was just like, are you sure about that? And she was like, yeah, you only ever seen them in the afternoon. I was like, right. This person is the most unintentionally funny person I've ever met in my life, and I love her.
Oh, and so you've seen Andrea since. Did I see a photo on Instagram of you two with alpacas? Am I right in thinking that there were alpacas involved, or some furry farmyard animal?
There are her horses, and they're wild beasts. No, she's very country and I'm not. So when I go and see her, she lives in a very rural part of Belgium. So when I go and see her, she takes this city boy and forces him to do manual labor, and it's always hilarious. So
oh, that's amazing. And so Kieran said in the interview that he thought being sent back was a disadvantage, that he didn't have it easier. But I saw that in an interview with my colleague, you said that you thought being sent back was an advantage. Why was that?
Because I think when we came back, that game is all about keeping your peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you regress to the childhood state. So if you are insecure, if you have been bullied, you fight back, you're aggressive. There's characters in there that everyone became like a child. That's why everyone's crying so much. So there was an element of coming back and being a little bit like objective. I'm quite objective. I see things how they are, not as how I want it to be.
Yeah.
So I liked coming in and being like, oh, people are acting different. And then that was an advantage for me. I think maybe not for Kieran, because Kieran literally got so into the game. Whereas I never thought I was going to win. So.
And when you talked about being killed and how you're like, it's not that deep, but what was it like when you did get the little piece of paper that said you're dead?
I was a bit relieved, just because I could sense myself going.
Yeah.
The game, I kind of didn't. So I knew that I don't want to say I'm intelligent, because that's just so.
But I mean, objectively, you are.
Objectively not stupid. So I knew that I would be considered a threat. So I knew that my days were numbered. I knew that they would never be able to recruit me, and they would never be able to give me an ultimatum. I knew that I would have no use to the traitors. So I knew that my days were numbered. So every day I just enjoyed it. So I was relieved when it happened. Relieved as in the fact that, like, there's only so much I could play the game without being a traitor. There's other things I can't talk about, but yeah. So I didn't want to. I was a bit relieved, because I didn't. By that point, it became voting out my friends, and like I felt really guilty, like voting for people, and then there'd be like, there's something really hard about watching someone who's innocent having to defend themselves and having to prove a negative. Like, you can't prove a negative. So once you are accused, it becomes, God, everyone's turning on me. Surprisingly, that episode when I accused Andrea, they kind of showed it, but the reason why I did that was because other people were going to do it at the round table, and I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't, we think it's you kind of thing. I feel like that came across, but I think people were angry at me for mentioning her, and I was like, no, I'm doing it because I'm never going to vote for her, but like, she has to. People are talking about her, and in this game, if people are talking about you, I'd rather people know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I suppose that's very hard to contend with, a lot of your feelings of like honor, guilt, friendship, emotion.
And as a viewer, you also have to bear in mind, you're privileged to more than we were. Like, we didn't know. Like, it could have been Andrea. Like, like, I'm just sitting there, like, next to, like, so it could have, we didn't know. And it's like, I think the audience tends to forget, and that's another reason why we're so close, that in that moment, none of us knew. And it's only in hindsight, when everyone watches it, that we now know in that context that everyone else does.
Yeah, interesting. And so you had a bit of relief as you left. Can you talk about the moment you stepped back through your front door as well? Like, what that was like being home again?
It was surreal. I went back to work pretty soon. That was the period between filming and the show coming out was odd, because it almost felt like it was a distant dream. Like, it almost felt like I had a fever dream, did it, came back, and I'd walk down the street and be like, people might know who I am in a few months. And it was nice just to be able to, like, be like, yeah, doesn't matter. And then, like, if I was waiting for it to come out, it's a bit, when I walked in, I was really supportive family and friends. So it was like, the other thing that was really odd is that we all became like homing pigeons to each other. Like, we all just like start hanging out outside the show, because we still do. I see like Kieran every week, speak to Andrea most days, see Wilf once a week, chat to Aaron all the time. Like, we're all still very like But at that time, before the show came out, we all kind of like found each other. We all started hanging out because it felt like even more so, no one would know that we had this life-changing experience besides us. It was really funny because like we'd be in pubs together and be like, all of us, me, Kieran, and Wilf were in a pub together a week and a half ago and genuinely couldn't leave because people were taking a picture of us. And we all did that the month after we filmed. And we were like, this will be really weird in a few months' time. And it is. It really is.
So how long before you went back to work, and what was that like as well? Did you kind of go back into it knowing that things were going to change? And as you mentioned,
I knew things were going to change, but the problem is you never know how successful I wasn't sure how big the show was going to be. I thought I knew the BBC had a lot of faith in it, but we kind of knew that it was going to be big because we knew what we had done in the show, and if they shown it well, it would have been insane. Like, but we didn't know if we thought it was interesting because it was our level of experience rather than actually being interesting. Like it's like when people talk about their holiday, you're like, oh, was it really fun? It was great, and you're like, okay, yeah, shut up. Right? Because it was there, we was like, is it more exciting to us because we were doing it? But then watching it was even more exciting because like it was like games within games.
So yeah, you did watch the show then. Did you sit down to watch it live every time the episodes came out, or?
I didn't because it was on so late that like my adrenaline would go up and I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I would do that thing where I'd literally just go on Twitter and watch the live responses to me. Never do that. Never ever do that. Never do that. Twitter is like, I call it God's blind spot. Like only bad things happen there.
Correct.
I'll type in my name, especially after the first episode. I was like, oh no. And Twitter was just like going in at me. That was kind of fun because I knew what was happening in the future. So I'd literally just like, I was keeping all the receipts just in case.
Yeah, Kieran was saying that he took the day off after that first episode because he knew that it was going to be intense. Yeah.
So I work for a professional football team. Can't really say which one.
Yeah.
I'm the team doctor, and the lads that day, I can't explain to you how much stick I was receiving. Genuinely, people were doing mimes of it happening. Like the club captain was like because it was shown off the first episode was shown after the England game, so every football fan, all the players watched it.
Yeah.
And the club captain was literally did a little play of it happening. Like he got all the fellas to line up. And it's like, oh, you were giving it the big one, weren't you? Giving it the big one. And he walked it down. And then I was just there like, I can't even tell you what happened. So I had to take it on the chin and then have the last laugh.
Oh no. Well, that was really hard. But I mean, there was that one episode, well, when it was the traitors were just discussing killing you, and it was like the cliffhanger for the next episode, and I was Googling, like, I was like, oh, I want to know what everyone else was saying. And generally I saw quite a lot of positive feedback about you as well. Yeah. Did you notice there was a lot of support in your corner, or was it just evil?
No. I'm being once again deliberately what's that word? Oh, God,
facetious? Flippant?
Yeah. There was really genuinely the majority of it was really positive. And people were sad that I left, and that was really good because that was nice. I like the reason why they took me out, which was good.
Yeah. What was that again?
If I was a traitor, I would have killed me too. I'd be like the first one out. Like, I mean, I'm surprised I ever stayed that long. Like, I was like.
What was the reason they sent you home again? Sorry, I can't remember.
I think they said I was smart and I'd figure it out, and I was like, yeah, I would have figured it out. I pretty much knew by like the second day I was there. I was like, I'm pretty sure I know who it is. I knew Wilf 100%. Amanda was a complete surprise. It's complete surprise because I wasn't close to her. If I spent more time with her, I would have figured it out. But I didn't. I wasn't close to her at all. But Wilf, because we spent the train journey together, I knew there was such a massive difference in how he acted. But yeah, I would have killed me too.
And so after the first episode, obviously you had everyone at work taking piss out of you. But when you came back, did you start having like you started getting more social followers? Did you have friends
Yeah.
pop out from every corner of your Facebook being like, oh, hey?
I don't have Facebook anymore, thank God. Yes, people were popping out, which is great, and it's good because I generally think that do you know what was really nice? The people that knew me being like, yeah, you came across really well, and that's how we know you to be. And I was like, oh. And then I went into the lads group chat, and it wasn't that. So, that was really nice. People were just like, oh, really happy to know you and really happy of how you come across. And colleagues, lots of like nurses, doctors that I worked with in the past were like, oh, really proud of you. And I'm like, yeah, thank you.
And did you see patients as well after it?
Oh yeah, I'm seeing patients all the time, and patients, lots of patients are like, oh, you're from the Traitors. I'm like, I am. Now show me your rash. No, no, I don't say that. But there's always that, like, there's a couple of patients, a few patients that I would say like half of the patients, a lot of people, like 28 million people have seen the show. So like half the people are like, I know you from somewhere. I don't know if I know you from being my doctor or somewhere else. And then a couple of patients are like, are you from the Traitors? I'm like, yes, I am.
And how do you retain that like balance as well of yes, I am, now show me your rash? Obviously not delivered like that. How do you retain the balance of being like, yes, now do you want to talk to me about your very serious issue?
Oh, you acknowledge it because it's part of my, if I was dishonest or affected, I think I'm naturally a very honest person and quite got good morals, and so I think that came across in the show, and so therefore it's nice that people have a more of an insight to her. I think it actually makes it easier because people have an insight to actually how I am as a person, like especially some of the older patients. Like I think when you're trying to encourage someone who's in an older adult to be more active, they know that I actually believe older people are capable in a very real way, like in a very like, not in a like, oh, you should do more walking. It's more like I have older friend. I actually have an older person friend, and I encourage them, and I would encourage you, and it's nice. It actually makes it easier.
Oh, brilliant. And so sorry, I'm just looking back at my questions. And you mentioned obviously you get stopped a lot in the street now. What has that changed for you?
Yeah, that's really fun. It's really good. Like when the show was on, especially I can go to like Sainsbury's, or like I'd get a smile from people, and it was really nice. And it's like, it's still going on now. Yeah, it's great. I actually like it. I always do. What I don't, I like when people come up to me and say it. What I don't like is when people look at me, keep staring at me, and I'm like, and they're like, you, and I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, do you get people giving their opinions of things you did on the Traitors? I mean, I think you acted with a lot of like, I don't think you did anything super controversial on the show, but do you get people still opining about what you should or shouldn't have done?
Everyone's like, you should have been stupider. And I was like, I probably would have done that. I just sometimes, do you know what it is that for some reason, like I generally thought that some of the stuff that I thought was obvious to people wasn't. So I was just like, oh, no one's thought of that. And so you kind of stick out. And I wouldn't, if I wanted to win, I would have been a little bit more quieter. And people said probably should have been quieter. My dad said I should have been quieter.
Like what kind of obvious things that you thought people
just like change in behaviors or things that were obvious about how, basically just obvious observations.
Like Wilf acting completely differently on the train to acting.
Yeah, observations and other things like that. Like there were, can't we talk about, but like I was quite like, oh, that's obvious, and then people, I would have killed me too.
And do you think it's what I suppose a question is, you've kind of touched on this already, but what was it like to go back to reality?
Fun. I mean, reality now has changed forever, which is amazing.
And I mean, yeah, have you had to change the way you live at all, like avoiding public transport or like the way you look at social media?
The humans are generally, I tend to see the good in humans, and people are generally quite nice. I've generally seen people are nice, even like I heard the other guys as well, like some of the people like Wolf has got some stick, but everyone's quite jolly. Everyone realizes it's just a game. It's a game. It's a game. once you get people off their moral high horse, and you kind of just people are generally nice.
And sorry, this is going to go back to a question that will probably tie into the next interview we do as well. But you mentioned that you wanted to be a doctor from the age of 12. What inspired you to want to get into healthcare?
Probably I was good at school, but I wasn't. I mean, I'm dyslexic, so, and I was late diagnosed dyslexic, so it was really. I found it really challenging. I like helping people, and that's such a cliche answer, but I feel like what I do makes a difference, and essentially making a difference in people's lives. Making people's lives less crappy is actually quite a nice thing. And that, like, you don't realize this sometimes. And sometimes when you're a doctor, you forget how many people's lives a day you make less shitty. Like, it's one of the tiniest things. But like, even stuff like reassurance, someone will leave me and I'll be like, that's not cancer. And they're like, oh, I don't have cancer. And they're like, their day's better. Do you see what I mean? And it's nice. And then you realize one thing that's actually really interesting is that, and it's almost similar to Traitors, is that I've probably seen thousands of patients at this point, and you realize they remember your face and you don't remember all of their faces. And so you are very conscious about how you are when you talk to people, because you're the person who tells them that their grandma's ill, you're the person who told them, and they remember you, they'll always remember you. So I in that sense, there are people who, because I was in pediatrics for a bit, and I just got used to, like, whenever I saw someone that said hello to me who had a child, that I probably looked after their kid. And even when I was on like neonates or like helping deliver their children, you're just like, crap, there are definitely human beings. My first job was obs and gynae, so delivering babies. So there's human beings who are now 6 or 7 or 8 who I was part of the delivery, and they're just walking around. So that's weird. That's really weird.
That's amazing. And what's next for you?
How much can I say? I've got lots of opportunities, and I'm excited about them, because I think that I want to be more of a public face in a way that is actually meaningful to people, get some good health messages out there, write some cool stuff. I mean, dictate, and someone else writes. Right. Just like I always call I call audiobooks reading, and it's not, it's listening intently. No, I have 2 friends, really close friends, who are like authors, like really good authors. And like, I'm just like, you've got like one of your best friends can't actually read. And they're like, yeah, like, we forgive you in your text. We just assume you mean something and we just turn up at a time. No, I've had some opportunities on TV, some exciting series or shows, which are in the works. I think for the future, it's all about doing good, and also the charity work. So Traitors Amos and Anthony Nolan have asked me to do as much, and I basically just said, just send me wherever you want. So I'm actually going to do some live testing and blood giving and all of that stuff, and hopefully going to be doing more kind of health advocacy stuff. I think one of my missions is to like disenfranchise poor ethnic minority groups, or just people that just don't get health inequality, so like women in certain healthcare cases, and try to be an advocate for everyone's health, and that'd be great.